right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is part 2 of the Fantasy Menace Dynasty Superflex recap of week 2 of the NFL this week. Again, I am joined with Brendan Albrizio.
What's going on, Jake?
And Colin O'Brien.
Good to see you again, our audience.
That's right. And what we're doing here, guys, is we're going to pick up where we left off earlier in the week. We try to cover all episodes. We try to keep it, under an hour. We just have too much to say. So we're going to split it up in 2 different episodes. Earlier in the week, we wrapped up with the Indianapolis Colts versus Houston. We're going to start off next with Seattle and Detroit. Seattle 37 at Detroit 31. Another close game, another running back injury. Brendan, does David Montgomery fall into your conspiracy theory?
I'm not sure he got invited to the Zoom call because my understanding is that these were the top running backs. And while I like David Montgomery, I don't love David Montgomery. And I'm not really sure that Austin Eckler would throw him the old invite. So I'm guessing no. And his injury did look pretty bad. And it sounds like it may be a couple weeks before he comes back.
Yeah. I mean, he looks great. It's unbelievable how much they want to use the 2 running back set. They like that thunder and lightning approach. And it's certainly clear that Jahmyr Gibbs is the lightning, whereas David Montgomery is the thunder. Hopefully he comes back soon, because if you guys have David Montgomery, he really had one of those league winner type of buildups occurring right now. So if he comes back, it says may take a couple weeks. I don't know if you guys saw Dan Campbell, the grip man himself, the kneecap biter himself, said, no, he's day to day. I'll let you know if he's playing or not this coming week, is what he said. Jared Goff, I'm never going to stop thinking he's an absolute idiot. I will never forgive him for not knowing which way is west and which way is east. However, another game where he puts up 24 points, right? So I don't want him on my team because I don't want absolute morons on my team, but he does seem to be like somebody that can help your team out. Tyler Lockett, also consistently undervalued, underappreciated. Both these guys really went off. Tyler Lockett, 25.9 points, 2 touchdowns, 8 for 10 in receptions for 59 yards. Guys, who else stood out to you this game? DK Metcalf left early, but came back in, right?
Yeah, honestly, I think this is one of the least exciting games that I've seen in terms of boom, fantasy performances. But a couple things that I think jumped out to me that I think were super interesting. Call me crazy, but Kenny Walker is not dead. We were absolutely terrified. At least I was when Charbonnet was drafted, but it seems, at least for now, that they're still heavily invested in him as their lead back. And that is music to my ears. Of course, I think he looked really good, although, 17 carries, 43 yards, not super exciting. Love the 2 touchdowns. I do think long-term, they're both going to have play there, but I'm hoping, and I do think that Kenny Walker will still continue to be the lead back there. I did want to comment on Gibbs specifically, just because I do think overall, I think they'll continue to push him. He's going to continue to get more touches, but I don't think he's just going to fill in the Montgomery portion of that backfield. So if you need a quick fill in, I think, what's his name? Craig Reynolds might be the guy you want to pick up. He's probably going to pick up some of that, if not him, someone else. But try to take a look at.
Craig is just not an inspiring first name. Craig. I'm sorry.
Craig,
for those of you in the audience, the name Craig doesn't strike me as ground and pound.
Absolutely. And then my boy Amon-Ra, right? I'm actually a little disappointed with him so far this year. I think he had 14 points the first week, 14 points the second week, but I'm expecting him to have a really, really big year this year. And honestly, I think he's a buy, believe it or not, because I do think there's opportunities for him to hit 20, 30 points per week. We know that his targets are going to be at floor, probably 7 to 10, right? And I'm kind of shocked to see where it's been so far this year, but I think there's a ton of opportunity. So that's somebody I'm probably going to go and try to get anywhere I possibly can.
We'll see. We got Jahmyr Gibbs with 9 targets versus, as you said, Amon-Ra's floor of 7 targets. You got Sam Laporta out there with 6 targets. We have Jameson Williams coming back at some point, the looming threat of Jameson Williams. We'll see what he emerges into, but Yeah, I'm with you, Colin. I was all in on Amon-Ra this offseason. You're the one that really convinced me of that. And I still buy everything you were selling on that, but certainly a little disappointing this year. Brendan, anything else before we move on to the Baltimore-Cincinnati game?
I'll just note that Sam Laporta out there for 82% of the snaps last week, 83% of the snaps, 6 targets this week, 5 targets last week. I think he's very startable.
Consistency.
Yeah, very consistent, very startable. Is playing great. I said it last week, but I'll say it again. I'm a big fan of Laporta, and if you've got him in your lineup, I think you start him.
Especially as a rookie. You don't see that too often as a rookie. So, yeah, you got to be pretty excited if you have him. Now, as I said, Baltimore versus Cincinnati. We got Baltimore winning 27-24. Close game. It didn't really feel like a close game. Felt like Burrow was desperate the entire time. Once again, guys, what the hell is going on with the Bengals?
I think the biggest thing to talk about is Joe Burrow's calf. He tweaked it at the end of the game. They said Zach Taylor said that he would have gone back out there. I don't know if I believe that. Joe Burrow hasn't looked right. He's re-injured his calf. I wonder if this isn't a lost year for him and he's just not going to be the Joe Burrow, which is fine because you can park him or maybe even IR him if they end up doing that. But I really think that that's a storyline here. And I don't think that you're going to get the Joe Burrow of last year. He tweaked it. It's one of those soft tissue injuries we always hate and we always talk about. It was lingering, and it's going to be a real problem the rest of the year for him.
Yeah. If you were down on T. Higgins, you were certainly rewarded this week. He put up 29 points, 28.9 to be exact, 12 targets, 8 receptions, 89 yards, and 2 touchdowns. However, if you were on the other side of that, Jamar Chase once again let you down this week, excuse me. Jamar Chase, guys, certainly has the talent. You can see it without a doubt. Superstar. However, definitely is that kind of throw it up, he'll get it, and he has those huge breakoff plays. Without those, he's not as reliable, right? He's not an Amon-Ra St. Brown where you know he's just going to get target after target and a little shallower of a target where he certainly will get the reception and then you give him the yak opportunity. Starting getting a little afraid of the boom and bust part of Jamar Chase. I'm certainly not moving him down my ranks yet, but he is sitting there at number 2 for me. He is susceptible to falling down at least a little bit. Still will always be a top 5, at least for a little while here. But anybody else you guys want to talk about? Zay Flowers, the rookie, again, 4 for 5, 62 yards. Certainly didn't score you a whole bunch of points, 10.8 points this week, but love seeing it from the second game of his career. He certainly seems to be a focal point. We saw Mark Andrews return this week. They still are giving Zay Flowers the opportunity. The fear of Andrews coming in and stealing all that thunder doesn't really seem to be there. You guys in agreement on that?
Yes.
And that's it for the Fantasy Minute. Oh, no, sorry. Okay, we still got a couple more games. All right. Las Vegas, 10. Buffalo, 38. Once again, another blowout. Jimmy Garoppolo, you stink. You stink. Let's not talk about you at all. Josh Allen, you don't stink. 23.6 points, 31 for 37, 274 yards, and 3 touchdowns. 3 carries for 7 yards. So they're definitely starting to make sure that he's throwing it more than running it. Josh Jacobs might stink. Looks like all that holding out, the Zoom call, all that stuff, Brendan, as you keep saying, maybe is catching up to him a little bit. Maybe has a little more rust to dust off or break off than he thought coming in.
Yeah, the -2 yards is never a good stat. 9 carries for -2 is where he ended up. Thank God he had 5 receptions for 51 yards, but yikes. Maybe he's going to pull up with an injury in the next couple of games or so. Who knows?
James Cook, look, you guys know I'm a big fan of James Cook. That was a very frustrating first half where Latavius Murray was in there. I barely saw James Cook at all. Then all of a sudden it looked like in the second half they remembered, oh, that's right, we have James Cook on our team. Let's start giving him the ball. He ended up with 17 carries, 123 yards, got you 19.9 points with the 4 receptions that he had there as well. But those goal line touches are clearly not his. It's going to be Josh Allen. It's going to be Latavius Murray. It's going to be Damian Harris. But he looks like the guy in between the 220 marks on the field, not the red zone guy. So I would say hamper your expectations there. Guys, anybody from a wide receiver standpoint you want to talk on? Stephon Diggs, 7 for 7. That's kind of impressive.
Yeah, but that's right. Like there's Stephon Diggs, right? He is who he is. There's Devontae Adams. He kind of is who he is. Although I'm kind of surprised to see the stat line based on the way that Garoppolo played. But I do think Gabe Davis is kind of an interesting person to talk about because I kind of was all in on him a year and a half ago. Then I was all out on him in like a best ball format. I think I'm very in, and I really don't know what to think about him moving forward. Like 7 targets to Gabe Davis, six receptions, love that 92 yards and a touchdown. I was so convinced that he was about to be like one of the next big guys in the NFL, and then he was just miserable to have on your roster last year. And I do think that there could be some positive regression there. I think that he is very talented. He can be super successful in this league. I want to hopefully continue to see that. But if I see 1 or 2 more weeks like this, he's someone I might want to maybe be a little bit curious about adding to my roster. But yeah, I mean, he's a very, very interesting player.
Yeah, it just seems like he's either going to get you that touchdown or he's not, and you're entirely dependent on that with him. But yeah, a lot of talent there, still pretty young. I think the big thing to me is that tight end split they got going on between Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. Their numbers could be a little different. That would make it a lot easier for me to figure out who the hell gets the touchdown when they're rolling around and all that. And it's like 86, 88. I can't tell what the heck's going on there. But Dawson Knox, 3 for 5 for 10 yards and a touchdown. Dalton Kincaid, 5 for 6 for 43 yards. Seems like they're easing in the rookie. But once again, we may have another kind of stud rookie tight end that's actually going to produce for you this year, guys, and Dalton Kincaid on that offense. And again, may also take away from that opportunity that you're really hoping for Gabe Davis. And then on the other side of that, another rookie tight end that had a lot of hype, Michael Mayer, really doesn't seem to be the guy. There's no hype around him, right? We got Luke Musgrave, we got Sam Laporta, we got Dalton Kincaid. Nobody's talking about Michael Mayer, and for good reason. 1 for 1 for 2 yards. 1.2 points, on the game. Until further notice, we're not going to talk about him.
No, I mean, it feels like the guy can't beat Austin Hooper, and I used to be a big Austin Hooper fan, as you know. But the guy doesn't seem to be able to beat him out. They're basically in a timeshare right now. Austin Hooper, 43% of snaps. Michael Mayer, 40%. I mean, it's just bad. And then you've got Jimmy G back there. We all know about Jimmy G. He is who he is. And so I don't know. Maybe I think you got to wait for Michael Mayer. If you've got him, you hope and pray that they'll figure out the quarterback situation finally. You stash him on your bench, and then you move forward.
Colin, I'm not really going to talk a whole lot about how pathetic that loss was to the Atlanta Falcons for your Green Bay Packers. However, final score, Green Bay 24 at Atlanta 25. Quarterback standpoint, Jordan Love does look like the guy. Looks like you guys should be very excited. 14 for 25 attempts, 151 yards, but 3 touchdowns, 2 carries for 23 yards. And then Brendan, you're the guy you threw out.
Oh, he had one good game, and it didn't look very good.
Desmond Ridder, 22.38 points.
Let me tell you something right now.
How big is that guy's forehead? I just got to ask.
He has a 5 head. It's not a Peyton Manning 5 head, but he's certainly got a 5 head. But let me just say something. If all you do is look at the box score and think to yourself, that Desmond Ridder guy, he's pretty good. I challenge you to go actually watch the game and how painful that 22 points is. I mean, that is brutal to watch.
Sell window. Sell window.
Yeah, you got 6 points on the ground. You got another 4 from rushing. I mean, get out of here. Definitely a sell window. I have not cut him, even though I encouraged all of the listeners and the audience to do so last week. I will admit right now, I haven't cut him yet because I don't have a suitable replacement. Because
what do you mean? You got Mac Jones.
In the league of record, though, if anyone gets hurt, I mean, I'm really in some trouble there. There's a bunch of piranhas out there in the ownership. They just scoop up all the quarterbacks. So I've got nothing. That is the only reason I want the audience to know that I have not cut Desmond Ridder, is because I can't get any sort of fair value, and there's nobody on waivers. But otherwise, that's not a good 22 points from him.
You're an honest man. Colin, I do want to come to you from a Green Bay standpoint, because if I am an AJ Dillon owner, I am at my wit's end. He is currently sitting at RB 42 on the season after 2 weeks. He was there without Aaron Rodgers, pun intended, I guess, but without Aaron Jones.
Well, Aaron Rodgers was also not there.
He was not there. He's not anywhere to be found. He is in some sort of tent, summoning a whole bunch of fairies and other forest creatures to help his Achilles heel. However, AJ Dillon, 5.6 points last week, 7.3 points this week. All the opportunity in the world. Does he just stink?
Yes.
Okay, moving on. Thank you very much. Now,
it's time to give up. It's time to sell him. If you have him in any dynasty formats, sell on the name because you might be able to find somebody. But yeah, he is not it. He is definitely. I will say towards the end of the year, he does typically play well in very cold weather where his big body is tough to tackle. So I do think towards the end of the year he'll start to look a little better. But man, he is frustrating to watch.
When he's already been the reason why your team is no longer in contention for the fantasy playoffs.
Exactly.
Very good. No more follow up on AJ Dillon. You get no more airtime, AJ. I apologize, but until further notice, you're out of here. Know who does get a little attention here before I move on from this game is the real B. Robinson, Bijan Robinson. We spoke about Brian Robinson, but boy, oh boy, fellas, he looks just as advertised. And Tyler Algier, get the hell out of here. This was Bijan's game. 19 carries, 124 yards, 4 receptions, 48 yards. And once again, every time he touches the ball, he just looks incredible. Brendan, was I wrong to pick Anthony Richardson over Bijan Robinson, even though I got both of them back?
You got both of them, and you only did that because it's a super flex league, and you want to be known as the guy that picked. Get out of here with that. I'm not even gonna. We're done with that. But I will say that it's Bijan Robinson looks awesome. And even though Tyler Algier on paper got 16 carries, he was only out there for 44% of the snaps. And Bijan Robinson was out there for 72%. And why I think that matters is last week, Bijan was only out there for 63%. He's getting more of the snaps, and he looks awesome. He looks awesome in the run game. He looks awesome in the pass game. I don't think there's anything you dislike about Bijan Robinson right now. I mean, you've got to be over the moon as long as Anthony Richardson learns how to slide. Then you've got yourself probably the top 2 talents that came out of this draft, Jake.
Brennan, I think I know where you're going to land on this because I think you've made it very clear on your stance on running backs versus wide receivers. But startup draft, Colin, Jamar Chase or Bijan Robinson?
What? You got to warn me with that type of.
Nope. We want the audience demands that it's live. We want it raw.
Startup draft. Well, this is a different podcast, Jake, because I do think it really depends on what your strategy is long term, right? If I'm going to sell off
to win,
if I want to win right now, I got to go my boy Bijan. He is what we thought he is. He is incredible. He is exactly who we thought he is.
He's so good. He's so good. Brendan, just to confirm,
you already know it's Jamar Chase for me. I can't do it with the running backs. We're seeing them go down left and right. Bijan Robinson is an awesome talent, but that's a dangerous position with a short shelf life. For me, I'm looking for guys that are going to get me easily 4, 5, 6 years, especially in a startup draft. If I've got Jamar Chase there, I'm taking Jamar Chase over Bijan every day.
Okay, fair enough.
Bijan, 4 receptions on 5 targets for almost 50 yards. That is a conservative stat line for him as a receiver. He is not just a running back, folks. He is a receiver. He's a do-it-all. He is different. And Jamar Chase is a boomer bust type of guy as it stands right now. So for me, I'm going all in on Bijan.
Yeah, we will break you, Brendan. We will.
We'll see.
We will.
We'll see.
Two more players real quick in just before we move on. Drake London, welcome back. Not overly excited. He got kind of a thread the needle type of touchdown, but good to see him out there. 18.7 points. That's a little more what you're looking for. Colin.
Kind of disagree just on the fact that a lot of that came directly targeted at Jair Alexander, who looked like a little boy. I think he is a top 5 cornerback in the league. I think he's an absolute stud, but Drake London went up there and absolutely bodied him a couple of times.
He changed his diaper for him. He dog walked him.
It was tough to watch as a Packers fan, thinking this is potentially the cornerback 1 in the entire league and people are sleeping on him, to just get bodied by a guy who was useless, absolutely useless last game against a not that great of an offense or defense. So really disappointing as a Packers fan, but Drake London, I think there's a lot of exciting things to take from that specific thing. But yeah, I'm not like jumping out of the gym for him right now, but I do think he can do that. They need to start pushing him the ball. The last thing I'll say too on that too is they were also trying to force the ball to Pitts a little bit, and he just wasn't able to make it happen. So my red flag is all the way up on Pitts.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. We covered that last week too, but yeah, until further notice, it's scary. It's definitely scary. Like I said, there was 2 wide receivers I want to call it, Jaden Reed too, and Colin, just very quickly. 19.7 points, 4 receptions, 8 targets, 37 yards, but 2 touchdowns. How much do you expect this to go down once Christian Watson returns? He's been battling an injury. Rookie Jaden Reed came in. He looked great. If you started him this week, you're certainly ecstatic, but is this something you can count on?
I don't think so. I think he's going to be a good player. I think that not only was Christian Watson out, Romeo Doubs was also pretty banged up. I think they kind of rolled him out there, not quite as like a distraction or anything like that, but he just clearly, watching him out there, he just didn't quite have it. So I think they were forced to try to move the ball in other different directions. I think Jaden Reed looks really good. That's great to see. As a rookie, I think he has a very strong potential moving forward, but I wouldn't put all my cards in that basket. I have no real interest in rolling him out and starting them on a weekly basis or anything like that.
Okay. All right. That's enough time on that game, but I think certainly one worth spending some time on. The next 2 games, however, I don't think is worth spending a whole lot of time on. So we're going to really breeze through these next 2. Miami at New England, really no significant dynasty relevant. If you're all excited about Raheem Mostert, good for you. Go listen to a redraft podcast. We're not the ones for you here. Mac Jones, 2 of both 14 points or less. Zeke, see you later. Ramondre Stevenson certainly let you down a little bit. Tyreek Hill got bottled up. Jalen Waddle got hurt. Juju Smith-Schuster is an absolute bum. Kendrick Bourne seems to be their favorite target, but that doesn't matter. Devontae Parker stinks. Anything else we want to cover in this game?
I think the 2 tight end offense might actually be real in New England. And I think that's the only notable part of this is that Hunter Henry, I think he's going to be a very startable tight end this year. And if you have him or have the ability to get him, then you should be starting him. And I think Mike Gesicki is going to be a decent, although not as good as Hunter Henry, option for you. Both of those guys, I think that Bill O'Brien, Mac Jones, they like throwing over the middle. They like those big body tight ends. And I think the New England's actually going to try to do it. They're going to try to do that old 2 tight end offense they tried to do with Jonnu, but Mike Gesicki's much better than Jonnu.
Yeah, it looked like they switched to that in the second half, right, Brendan? They really weren't using that 2 tight end set at the beginning, but once they did, they started getting a little more ball movement there. So you're right. I don't think that's going to be very good for fantasy, though. So certainly not something you're too excited about. Out of the 2 tight ends, Mike Gesicki or Hunter Henry, which one would you rather own right now, Brendan, in Dynasty?
Hunter Henry. He's got a slightly better track record than Mike Gesicki. He's a better blocker than Mike Gesicki is. I think Gesicki's a slightly better route runner, but just as important, especially in this New England offense, is the ability to block. Hunter Henry out there for 92% of snaps Sunday night. Mike Gesicki, 72% of snaps. So I'm telling you, they're going to really try this thing, and I don't mind it.
Yeah. And as a Patriots fan, doesn't come easy to say. Jalen Waddle out in concussion protocol right now from a seemingly pretty, not nice hit. We'll call it a not nice hit. Hopefully keep an eye on Jalen Waddle with the concussion protocol, just like Anthony Richardson. These things aren't easy to get out of. It's typically 1 to 3 weeks, unless you're Tua Tagovailoa, which could be an eternity, but keep an eye on that one. The other game that I really don't think there's a whole lot to talk about today, fellas, is the New Orleans Saints 20 beating the Carolina Panthers 17 points. Bryce Young, obviously some of you are watching from a Superflex standpoint, still looks like an Oompa Loompa out there messing with the Lollipop Guild. But there was a moment where he got tackled. I think it was after he had thrown the ball, but got tackled and kind of wrapped around and landed on the tackler and flopped. His body propelled off of the tackler's body like a fish out of water. That's how how small and light this guy is. It was a fish out of water flopping up in the air, landing back down on the ground. It kind of fell down like a leaf from a tree back down onto the ground. I'm not buying this guy. I'm sorry. This guy can't see over the belt line of the guys in front of him. I'm not buying him. You guys can buy him if you want to. This guy has I stink written all over me. And you probably can't even see it because he's down by your kneecap. So I know, am I wrong? Am I out of 22 for 33 completion, 153 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 2-point conversion? Good for him. And you know what? I think he's going to score sometimes. You know what else is going to happen? He's going to get blown away to smithereens at some point by somebody that knows how to play football.
I feel like he's been really bad. I feel like Bryce has been really bad the first 2 weeks. His offensive line is not doing him too many favors. It's hard for me to tell how much the height's impacting him, although I totally agree.
His face is in the hamstrings of the O-line.
He looks really small. He also has a weird helmet shape. Like that thing is not helping him because it's an odd helmet shape it's
a child's
pointy. None of it is working for him. He hasn't even thrown for 200 yards yet. He keeps targeting Adam Thielen, who was relevant 5 years ago. I don't know. He seems a little lost over there. I don't know what to make of it. It's only 2 games, but CJ Stroud has definitely looked the better of the two. And I just think we need way more tape on Bryce Young, but he sure as shit isn't starting if I've got him in any of my teams.
Are you guys rostering Rashid Shaheed? 25 years old, last week, put up 19 points this week, 10.3 points. Wide receiver over there. He's kind of sliding under the radar, but had a little bit of hype a year ago. Is somebody you might want to keep an eye on at least. Is he taking up a bench spot, especially in the league of record where bench spots are oh so sacred and oh so protected by our tyrant of a commissioner?
I think if he got the space, and unfortunately I'm too good at this for me to have bench spots, then yes, I absolutely think he's an interesting player, especially because I think Michael Thomas is quickly going to probably start to disappear. He had a decent little game there. But I think Rashid is an interesting player, but he could go either way, right? He could be someone who is relevant for right now. I don't think he's like someone who's going to be like a league winner for 5 years. I think he's just an interesting person to put on your roster. I'm not like falling in love with him. I'm not getting romantic about the guy by any means, but I agree. I think you said it right, Jake. I think he's an interesting player to consider. He's someone you might want to toss on the back end of your bench there. And if someone like Michael Thomas does go down, which we know is something that is maybe even probable at some point, then I think he becomes far more interesting. But I still don't think he's like a dynasty piece I want to bet on my long-term plans, essentially.
Yeah, roster spot. That's all I ask. All right, moving on. We don't need any more. Derek Carr, you also stink. Okay, final game. Cleveland 22, losing to Pittsburgh 26. Brendan, the rumors are that you absolutely love the intro song. You want to talk a little bit about that?
God. Let me tell you something. Jake and Colin, I was talking with another owner in the league, and he reminded me of what the old Monday Night Football, when it was on ABC, that entrance song, and that is a song. I don't know what.
Is that the one, the bells?
The bells? No, it's the Hank Williams Jr.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
That is a tune. I'm not gonna sing it, but go look it up. That is a song. I don't know what Disney is doing. This was a horrible song in the air tonight with Chris Stapleton and then Snoop Dogg. What are we doing here? What is wrong with the old Monday Night Football song? Let's bring it back. Do you guys remember when they changed the Sunday Night Football theme to instead of waiting all day for Sunday night, it was Sunday night? And then there was a huge revolt and they changed it back. That's what needs to happen here. This song is brutal. It was so bad, it almost ruined the viewing experience for me before it even started.
You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. Grab your pitchforks, grab your torches. Brandon wants you to rise up. He wants that song out of here, and the only way we're going to do it is together. However, what was in the air tonight was a football throw to our boy, George Pickens. Took a little bit to see him emerge, but boy, oh boy, did he look like the guy that we were hoping to see. He had that one. What is it, a slant route that went for 71 yards and a touchdown. And then from there on, they were like, oh, that's right. This guy's actually pretty good at throwing it to him. They started hyper-targeting him. He ended up with, let me see here, scrolling down. He ended up with 22.7 points, only 4 receptions out of 10 targets, but 127 yards and a touchdown. Some of those throws were god-awful. Some of them were way out of bounds. Just kind of, they were smothering him. Deontay Johnson obviously out injured. Where do you guys have George Pickens? What's his ceiling? Is his ceiling top 15? Is his ceiling top 12? What do you think he could emerge as this year, assuming Pickett steps it up a little bit from what we've seen these last 2 games?
For me, it's a huge unknown. I think from a talent perspective, I think honestly, I'm not willing to say top 12, top 15 or anything like that, to be honest. I just
How dare you?
If he had a reliable quarterback, that if he had a veteran quarterback that I knew could do it consistently, sure, I'm happy to do that. I think he is likely to be for the remainder of this year until Kenny Pickett either becomes what a lot of people think he can be or not. I think he's probably a very consistent boomer bust type of player. I don't believe that he's going to be able to string along even half of the games at 22 points, especially given the 4 for 10 reception to target line. I just don't buy it. I don't think he's going to be able to string along multiple games of 72-yard long touchdown type plays, but the talent I think is there. I think he's a dog and I think he can do it. I really, really like him. It's frustrating to see him in this offense right now. And I hope I'm wrong on that because I'm all in on him as a person and a player. I just am very worried about Pickett as a quarterback that's going to be able to consistently take him to where I think he can go long term. So for me, I think he's a who knows type of player. But if I need him as a spot start, sure. But I'm getting pretty concerned about him as my wide receiver 2 or 3.
Yeah, it was a pretty bizarre game overall, just with the number of turnovers, the poor play, and then I don't know what happened to Kenny Pickett. But I agree, Colin. The situation right now with George Pickens is he is consistently inconsistent, as you said, and that's really all you're going to get. Something up with that offense. I really think it starts with the run game, though, for me. They don't have a run game. Najee Harris had a couple great runs, but outside of that, he looks like he's either hurt or he has a problem. Jaylen Warren looks far better out of that backfield, but even so, they don't really have anything going on the ground. Kenny Pickett is off to a slow start. Combine that with no run game, and you've got yourself a lot of problems. If you have George Pickens, I'm guessing that you spend a decent amount of draft capital on him, so you may need to slide him in your lineup. You're probably not feeling great about that. But if you have other options right now that are around that wide receiver 2 or 3 spot, I think you got to take those right now until Kenny Pickett or that offense figures out what the hell they're trying to do and who they're trying to be.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing, first of all, I do disagree with you that Jaylen Warren looked way better than Najee Harris. Jaylen Warren was less yards per carry. Najee Harris, 10 carries for 43 yards. Jaylen Warren, 6 carries for 20 yards. They both stunk. They both look terrible. You guys saw me absolutely tilting, saying Najee Harris is Trent Richardson 2.0. I needed, I think, 5 points from Najee Harris to win one of my matchups. I got 5.3 points. He's not Trent Richardson 2.0 anymore, guys. You know what it is? He faced 2 very difficult defensive lines. Let's give it another week, but I don't think Jaylen Warren was any better, guys. I really don't.
Well, he had some nice catches on the ground. Definitely, I agree with you, Jake. He was not exactly efficient, but I thought he had a lot of nice catches and was moving the chains every time he picked it up. He looked explosive in the air, but I agree, not on the ground.
Okay. Well, I'll give you that. I guess I'll give you that. I just need to make sure we're keeping the audience honest here. We got to make sure we're giving good information. Same thing goes for George Pickens for me, though, guys. 2 difficult matchups. Those face really strong corners this week. No Deontay Johnson. They knew who to hone in on, and he still broke free. So I'm not quite as low. However, I also was very high on him, so I might be pretty biased here. Last but certainly not least, the Nick Chubb injury. That was brutal. For those of you that have not seen it yet, I would encourage you not to see it. It is disgusting. It's honestly the first time I can remember that the broadcast has decided right on the spot, we're not going to show you that replay. That was not good. And, you see Nick Chubb there grabbing his knee. He was wailing. There's no mic even close to him, but you can hear him wailing over and over again. And then the stills start coming out. And then you start seeing it on Twitter or wherever you go see it. And it was disgusting. He literally could have put his foot in his mouth with how disgusting the foot bent forward, the knee bent forward. And if you guys remember, he had a complete blowout of his knee at Georgia in college as well. So long term, this is really not good. And that stinks. I think legitimately 6 minutes before this injury happened, the three of us were texting, hey, is Chubb one of the most underrated running backs out there? He just looked unbelievable. He's truly one of the more pure runners that I think we've seen in our time of playing fantasy football and really paying attention. And it just really sucks to see happen. Now, moving on from that, what do you guys do? The rumors coming out, right? I believe Kareem Hunt was visiting today at the Browns. Makes a lot of sense. They also, the reports are that they're interested in Cam Akers. What are you guys doing? Jerome Ford? I'm going to tell you guys this right now, and I'm certainly distributing this recording to the league I'm about to reference. But in one of our leagues last night, I saw the Nick Chubb owner send away a 2025 first for Jerome Ford. Maybe the worst trade I've ever seen in my life.
Wow. Yeah, I think Ford's the guy. I don't care if they sign Kareem or not. Kareem wasn't good last year. They did not want him. I don't even think he will end up signing, but even if he does, I still think Jerome Ford's your guy over there. He wasn't very good last year. Kareem Hunt was not very efficient. So I think it's Ford and then everybody else, but it's certainly not going to be Nick Chubb. I mean, Nick Chubb has never had a year, talk about efficiency, below 5 yards per carry since 2018. Every single year, he's at least 5 yards a carry. So massive blow. By all accounts, he's a great guy too. Great locker room guy, real leader. Just absolutely devastating.
Just want to point out, as long as we're talking about yards per carry, granted, very small sample size for Jerome Ford, but last season, his yards per carry, 1.5 yards, very inefficient. Only 8 touches. So let's take that with a grain of salt. But I'm not as convinced as you are, Brendan, that he is the guy. I think they trade for Cam Akers, they bring in Kareem Hunt. He's certainly not worth a first. I'm not sure if I'm giving up a third. I think that's a player, that's a backfield that I don't really want to be a piece of right now.
Yeah, for me, actually, I think Ford looked really good, which is interesting. But I think this entire offense to me is going the wrong direction. And I think I was really high on Chubb. I took him everywhere I possibly could. I put out trade offers everywhere I possibly could. I was convinced that he was going to get a ton of catches this year too. And I just didn't think there was anyone really behind him. And I think Jerome Ford looked really good yesterday, and that's great for him. But they're running out of exciting pieces on this offense. And every single time he touches the field, I get less and less excited about Deshaun Watson's ability to ever become what people think he can get back to. He has looked awful every time he's touched the field.
He played pretty dirty last night too. And that's,
Yes.
a lot of face mask grabs and stuff when he's running with the ball. And, I'm surprised. Who would have thought that we would have seen Deshaun Watson getting dirty with his fingers? But here we are. He's getting really dirty with those fingers last night. And you don't like to see it, but I am one of those ones that certainly has been giving Brendan a lot of flack for not even ranking Deshaun Watson, but he did not look good last night. I have to put my hand up. I admit it. Still not totally out on him, but he's certainly not rising in my rankings. I can promise you that.
Yeah, I think it's to your point, I think he did get a little too handsy. But I do think this offense is kind of a dumpster fire. I think Amari Cooper, though maybe lone bright spot, he looked great, even though he wasn't supposed to he wasn't up until an hour or two before the actual broadcast started. He wasn't even going to play. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to get out of this offense everywhere I possibly can. I do agree with you, Jake. I think they're absolutely going to bring somebody in. I don't think that Ford's going to do it by himself, but he's probably going to be the leader. It really depends on who they bring in. And I don't think it's Kareem Hunt. I don't think there's a ton of players out there that, like, if it's Cam Akers, I'm actually more interested in Jerome Ford.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll leave that up to the audience to decide. We'll reconvene on this probably in a couple of weeks. We're going to see who lands where, but only time will tell on that one, Colin. I'm not sure you and I agree on that. I think I lean more towards Akers. But with that, fellas, that does wrap up our week 2 recap. We plowed through this one. Good for us. A lot of good insight for the audience here. Guys, next week we're a little up in the air. I know I'm traveling. Brendan, you're traveling sometime next week. Audience, if you don't see something next week, don't panic. We're going to try to squeeze one out there. It might be Colin and Brendan, and it might be just me from abroad. Who knows what happens, or it might be absolutely nothing, but do not panic. Your favorite podcast host will return very shortly. So with that, thank you very much for listening to the Fantasy Menace, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you as soon as we possibly can. That's it for today.